Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
Want me to hit you for motivation? That was the last sentence I ever let him say to me without consequence. My name is Lena Carter. I'm 27, and I've spent my entire life being my father's emotional punching bag, his favorite scapegoat, his verbal punching dummy whenever bills piled up or dinner was 5 minutes late. That night, he stood in the living room with that same crooked smirk he always wore before the storm. The TV flickered behind him, my mom sat frozen on the couch, and my sister hid behind her phone, pretending not to exist. "Answer me," he barked again, stepping closer. I could smell the alcohol, the sweat, the anger he'd carried home from losing another job. "I did pay," I said quietly. "But you took my card again last week." His face twisted. "Don't you dare talk back to me in my house." My house. The words made something in me snap. For 27 years, I'd swallowed every insult, every slap disguised as discipline, every reminder that I was the useless one while my sister was the princess. But not that night. That night, something inside me finally went quiet, the kind of quiet that comes right before a storm changes direction. He raised his hand. My mom whispered, "Lena, please don't." But I didn't move back. I stepped closer, and the words that came out of my mouth froze him mid-swing. "Go ahead," I said coldly. "Just remember, this time, I'll make sure everyone sees the bruises." The room went still. Even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to stop. Dad's hand hung in the air, not out of mercy, but confusion. He wasn't used to me talking back. He was used to me breaking,
crying,
apologizing for things I never did. But this time, my voice didn't shake. My mother's eyes darted between us, wide and wet. "Lena, please," she whispered again. He didn't mean it. Didn't mean it. The same 3 words she'd been using since I was 10 years old. Words that had become the wallpaper of our home, covering cracks, never fixing them. My sister, on the couch, snorted. "You're being dramatic again," she muttered without looking up. "You always push him." And just like that, the script replayed. Victim becomes villain. Abuser becomes poor dad under pressure. Only this time, I wasn't reading my part. I took my phone out of my pocket and hit record. The red light blinked between us like a heartbeat. "Say it again, Dad," I said softly. "Say what you just said about hitting me." His face went pale. "You think I care about your little games?" He lunged forward, but I stepped back fast, calm, calculated. "You should care," I said. "Because when this video leaves my phone, the whole world will know what kind of man you are, and what kind of family this is." He froze. Mom gasped. And that's when the front doorbell rang. Loud, sharp, and perfectly timed. The doorbell echoed through the house again, long, insistent. My father froze mid-step, his jaw tight. "Who the hell is that?" he barked. I didn't answer. I already knew. I'd made the call earlier that evening when I found my pay stub missing from my drawer, again. "I'll get it," I said, walking past him. "Don't you dare open that door, Lena," my mother hissed, her voice trembling. But I did. And when I pulled it open, 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch, rain glistening on their shoulders. "Evening, ma'am," one said. "We got a report of domestic disturbance from this address." My father's voice thundered from behind me. "This is a family matter." "Who called you?" The officer's gaze shifted to me. I raised my chin. I did. For a second, the air in the room snapped, like the moment lightning hits too close. My father's face turned crimson, his hand twitching by his side. "You called the cops on your own family?" I swallowed the fear clawing at my throat. "I called them on an abuser." The younger officer stepped forward. "Sir, we're going to need you to calm down." Mom was crying now, begging them all to stop. My sister muttered something about embarrassment and what the neighbors will think. But I didn't care anymore. The silence, the fear, it was ending tonight. Because justice had finally entered our living room.
and it was wearing a badge.
"Calm down," my father laughed bitterly. "I am calm. It's her that's out of control." He pointed at me like I was some wild creature, his voice booming. "She's been lying for years, turning everyone against me. She wants to destroy this family. The officer remained steady. Sir, yelling isn't helping your case. Let's step outside and talk. Case. Dad spat. There's no case. This is my house. And there it was again, that word.
My.
As if ownership gave him the right to humiliate and break everyone who lived inside it. I looked at the officers, my heart pounding but my voice steady. I have videos. And bruises. And text messages where he threatened me last week. The older officer nodded, professional but kind. We'll take your statement, ma'am. My father's voice cracked. You're lying, Lena. You're lying like you always do. But my mother's sobs told the truth. Her trembling hands covered her face. My sister finally put her phone down, her lips parting in disbelief. She whispered, You recorded him? I had to, I said. You wouldn't believe me otherwise. The younger officer stepped behind my father. Sir, we're placing you under temporary detainment while we investigate. Don't you touch me, Dad roared, jerking his arm back. But the officer was faster, grabbing him firmly. The room filled with chaos, Mom crying, my sister pleading, my father shouting. And through it all, I stood still, finally realizing the power of one word I'd forgotten I had. Enough. When the cuffs clicked shut around his wrists, my father's rage turned into something almost pitiful. Lena, please, he shouted, his voice cracking now. Don't let them do this. I'm your father. I looked at him, really looked, and saw not a father, but a man who had mistaken fear for respect his entire life. Yes, I said quietly. You are. And that's exactly why this hurts the way it does. The officers guided him toward the door. My mother followed, sobbing, clutching his arm. She didn't mean it, she begged. Please, she just overreacted. The officer turned to her gently. Ma'am, if there's a history of violence in the household, this is procedure. He'll have a chance to speak.
Dad twisted his head back toward me.
You'll regret this, Lena. You think you can survive without me? I didn't answer. Because for the first time in my life, his voice didn't scare me. The door shut behind them. The red and blue lights flashed through the curtains like quiet thunder, the color of freedom, the sound of peace beginning. Mom turned to me, her face pale, trembling. What did you do? I stopped pretending, I said. My sister stood there in silence, the weight of realization finally cracking through her arrogance. I picked up my phone and ended the recording, my thumb hovering over the save button. Then I whispered to myself, almost smiling, it's evidence now, not a memory. The police car's lights faded down the street, leaving the house eerily still. My mother sank into the couch, clutching her chest like the air itself hurt. My sister finally spoke, her voice small. Lena, what happens now? I looked around the living room, the cracked photo frames, the dent in the wall from a past argument, the coffee table he once smashed because dinner was late.
Now,
I said quietly. Now we rebuild. But my mother shook her head, trembling. You shouldn't have done that. He'll never forgive you. I turned to her, the exhaustion in my bones heavier than fear. Mom, forgiveness means nothing if it keeps you chained. Her lips trembled. You don't understand marriage. I understand abuse. I cut in softly. And I understand what silence costs. The room fell silent. Even my sister, who had always taken his side, looked ashamed. She whispered, I didn't know it was that bad. You didn't want to, I said gently. Because if you saw it, you'd have to choose. That night, I packed a bag. Just a few clothes, my laptop, and the folder of evidence I'd collected, bruised pictures, recordings, statements. I called a friend from work, a woman who ran a nonprofit that helped women escape violence. When she picked me up, I didn't look back. The house was dark, still, and hollow. But the silence no longer belonged to him. It belonged to me. 2 weeks passed before the silence began to feel like peace. I was staying in a small apartment above the Women's Resource Center, a temporary space with white walls, warm lamps, and no shouting. Every morning, I woke to birds instead of slammed doors. It was strange and beautiful. The legal process had begun. The officers filed my statement, and the district attorney contacted me. There would be hearings, restraining orders, maybe even jail time. It terrified me, but not enough to stop. Then one afternoon I got a message. From him. I'm sorry, Lena. I didn't mean to. Please come home. Mom's not eating. The neighbors are talking. You made your point. I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. This isn't about making a point. It's about breaking a cycle. I hit send and blocked the number. That night, I visited the hospital where Mom worked part-time in the laundry department. She looked thinner, fragile. When she saw me, she broke down in my arms. I should have protected you, she whispered. I held her tighter. Then start now. Protect yourself. She nodded through tears. For the first time in years, she didn't defend him. She just cried, not out of guilt but release. When I left, I looked up at the hospital lights. For the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in forever. Control. 6 months later, the case closed. My father pled guilty to domestic assault and received 18 months in state custody. No trial, no grand defense, just a quiet acceptance of his downfall. When the verdict was read, I didn't feel triumph. I felt stillness. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "You're safe now." Mom moved in with my sister for a while, but slowly, she started visiting me. She'd bring homemade soup in old glass jars, her hands shaking less each time. Once, she looked around my tiny apartment and said, "It's small, but it's peaceful." And that peace was the inheritance I wanted all along. I'd gone back to work, joined a trauma support group, even started therapy. There were days I still flinched at sudden noises, but there were also mornings I woke up smiling for no reason at all. Healing wasn't a straight line, but it was mine. Last week, I stood in front of the mirror before heading to court for a final hearing. I wore a navy blue suit and the same silver earrings my dad once called too flashy. I looked at myself, really looked, and whispered, "You survived." When the judge asked if I had anything to say before the session ended, I stood tall. "I don't want revenge," I said softly. "I just want peace, and I finally have it." The gavel struck. The chapter closed.